like most people probably already figured out, I keep getting this never-ending flow of letters from the followers and curious people in general, with questions about a lot of things, and I may actually have some what you call it, common education, but I'm not really deeply into any specific subject, and I'm not quite that expert that I might actually pretend to be once in a while. But nevertheless, I will try my best to answer such questions as best as I can. What more can be demanded of any individual? A lot of it is about the cops, the police authorities, and the historical perspective on these matters. And yeah, it's a rather big subject, and it tends to spread all over and split up into countless subtopics. So I'm afraid I can't do much more than scratch the surface, and therefore I start just summing up some of the most frequent questions on this subject, and make it a true or false game, perhaps. Now here are some of those. One is it true that the Policiarian race doesn't have any country of its own? And are there any specific racial features about this particular group? Also, what other human races are they possibly related to? We're all supposed to have our ancestry traced back to chimpanzees, those ordinary chimpanzees that we usually refer to, and there's one other species, the bonobo. Looks like most chimpanzees with some special features, and they're very rare. I might perhaps return to this. They're both as closely related to the human species as the other. Sometimes people ask me if it may be possible that the police, unlike other human species, might actually be traced back to some other of these apes. Also, it's these questions about the Policiarian language. Is it true that all members of the police corps have German as their native language? This is a very interesting question, and I believe most people have sometimes wonder about this. And also there are some issues of a more practical nature, how to protect yourself from police officers and from Policiarian violence in general. Let's see. Then there's one question that's somewhat controversial, because there are no clear evidence about anything. How exactly do guardians and such relate to the Policiarian race? Are they related genetically, or are they just similar in appearance? And is there some quantitative difference between those two, that they may be degenerated subgroup? And I'll try answering as best as I can. I can start with this matter about the Policiarian race. Yes, it's very much true. Their race all of its own. However, not a species of its own. They have the same ancestry as other human races. Otherwise, they wouldn't be human in a genetical sense. There's no evidence they are, but strictly speaking about DNA and genetic ancestry, they actually are. And this specific race, there are really some myths that may or may not be true, but physical features and such. And at the moment I'll leave those, but they do have an original home somewhere in the Alps, between Germany and Austria. And I should mention this because, according to the most popular misconceptions, they would be Prussians, and their language would be some kind of dialect related to Polish and stuff, Slavic language, which is not true. It's a Germanic language, just like our Scandinavian languages are. And I should perhaps also mention that you may have heard this, that police officers have this special ability that they can understand all human languages, only that even if they cannot actually speak them actively. And this is very interesting because it's the other way around. They can actually speak any language, but they do not understand them. And this is highly unique. It's never been observed among any humans otherwise. In fact, it's not really. There are no scientific proof that they even understand their own language, this German dialect. And perhaps they do not understand anything at all. And there are strong indications towards this, really. Is there anything more about language? Their own internal language have some curious markers. There's really no specific rigid grammatical structure. You can do more or less whatever you like with it, but it really becomes an actual problem because it's not really needed, because most of the language consists of interjections, just and single word commands. So the grammatical structure never really becomes necessary, because it's all about shouting out short imperative and interjective one-word messages. Get down, 2 words sometimes. But according to this theory, you might as well say down, get. And internally, that might actually be the way they speak. And because the other one is herself a police, and no matter how you express it or what specific order of you arrange the words in, she won't understand anyway. So that's very much practical. And there are all policemen German? Yes, they are. You can see this sometimes Friday afternoons. You can see those long processions of police cars all heading south, and that's why they go home to Germany over the weekend. And you better not interfere with them at these occasions, because they are more frustrated than ever then after a long week of interacting with more typical humans. And just leave them be, because then they will safely get home to Germany, and all this accumulated rage, frustration and potential violence instead will be directed towards their families. And this sounds barbaric and very cruel, and doesn't feel right to leave it there. But still, we need to remind ourselves that this actually is the natural way. This is how it has always worked, and it's buried deeply within their genetical code. So do not worry about this, because it's just the way of nature, a stage that most of us may have elevated above, but they have not, and they do not actually suffer in the way you might think, or that we're used to. How to protect yourself. There are some fatal misunderstandings about this. Most of you are probably familiar with this quick fix that you have. You wear high boots, like riding boots or something, and you fill them up with dry branches, something like that. And when they start beating you up, they will hear those branches breaking and become satisfied by this sound, believing that it's actually your bones being broken. But think a bit more around this. Would this actually work? No. Would they actually be stopped by hearing bones being broken? No. Obviously not, because that's when the fun starts. They will be even more enthusiastic hearing those sounds. And also some people say lie down and play dead, but this actually makes no difference, because okay, they might prefer directing their violence towards living matter, but smashing a dead body may be actually almost as fun, and this physical sensations connected to this, and those sounds, hearing bones being broken and such, they are very much similar. And also they take no chances, even if there's no signs of heartbeat or breathing. They naturally are interested in making sure that heart won't get going again, and this person will race and escape. They really want to be sure you're dead, so they will not take any chances. Then we also know that in some bothersome situations, when they have this accumulated frustrations within them, they expect you to pay for things over and over, for the same things, just for being left alone. And this becomes quite a bit expensive in the end. And some people say that if you have some toy money, that kind used for some social games. You, if you have a supply, always bring them with you. You may as well hand them those false money, because they can't tell the difference, true or false. Yes, it's true, very much true, and it's been made some research. It actually works. So this is an inexpensive way of getting out of this kind of trouble. So always carry a bunch of toy money in some inner pocket or something. Okay, just in brief about Guardians. For all we know, they do have some common ancestry. They may be some kind of branch of the Policiarian race, or bastard children in Policiarian families. So they will never be allowed to carry those typical emblems and symbols of the full-blood police officers. Of course, they might be just as frustrated, and there are some signs they might actually have a somewhat higher general level of cognitive skills. So they are locked out from the Policiarian schools, academies, which it's hard to let go of. Then there's another thing. A few years ago became a general rule that people with those neuropsychiatric conditions like ADHD and Asperger's syndrome and such weren't allowed anymore to be taken up within this community. And the problem is that they thereby will lose about 90% of their of the group that they would otherwise recruit their new members from. And another weird thing about this is that this is something they also have had in common with their group of regular customers, those people that was their usual target of Policiarian violence. Might perhaps be an explanation to why this group had to be excluded from this guild. I'm really not sure about the details of this. I only know that there has been some discussions about this. Either way, I really can't go much deeper into any of this respective subjects, but maybe I've contributed with some more general understanding of this specific race. Yeah, in one way or the other we will stay in touch, and fuck